All right, so for this lesson, we are going to be going over common factoring, and this is the start of our quadratics unit. So the main thing that we're going to learn how to do is how to factor polynomial expressions. We'll talk about what factoring means in a minute. Just want to go over a little bit of review so that we can see how we get to these steps. So remember, when we're dealing with exponents, whenever you are multiplying terms that share the same variable, we're going to use exponent laws when it comes to the exponents to simplify it down. So whenever we multiply, we're going to add the exponents of the common variables, and whenever we're dividing, we're going to subtract the exponents from the common variables. And if a variable doesn't have an exponent, we're just going to assume that that exponent number is 1. Same thing with the coefficient. If there is no coefficient, we assume it's 1. The coefficients are going to be multiplied or divided however we regularly would if there was no variables attached to them. So remember, if I'm going through this first one, I have 3x times 5x to the power of 3. 3 times 5 is going to give me 15. And then I have x times x to the power of 3. So 1 plus 3 is 4. If I move on to b, I have a division sign now. So what I'm going to do is -7 divided by -1 is going to give me a +7. And then I have x to the power of 6 minus 2. These ones would have been addition is 7 times x to the power of 4. If I take a look at c, I have to multiply through a little bit further. So I'm going to go to x times 2x to the power of 2 gives me 2 times 1 is 2. X to the power of 2 plus 2 is 4. It's there and there. We're going to get an addition. When I do x times -4x, I will get -4 still because that doesn't change. Just going to keep that color consistent. So -4. And then x times x to the power of 2 gives me 2 and 1 added together. So I get x to the power of 3. If we move on to the last example, remember that here and here, I have brackets around it. I want to treat that as one term. So when we take a look, the first thing that we're going to do is division to both terms. So here, if I get 12 divided by 3, I will get 4. And then I have x, 4, subtract 1 is going to give me x to the 3. If I come over here, -6 divided by 3 is going to give me -2. I have x to the power of 2 minus x to the power of 1 gives me 2 minus 1 is x to the power of 1. And that is going to be my simplified form because I cannot combine those. They are not like terms. So when we are talking about factored form, what we are doing is essentially there's two different ways that we state it. The first way that it's written is its factored form. Once we multiply that through and use our expanding, that becomes our expanded form. So essentially it's the same way that addition is the opposite to subtraction. Factoring is just the opposite of expanding. So here we have factored, and here we have expanded. So when we are doing this, we are going to start off with an example where we are given an expanded form and we want to put it into factored form. So when we are doing it, we want to look at what is a common multiple of the two. So we're looking for a common multiple. If I take a look here, I know that 4 is divisible by 4 and 12. So I could make a factored form of 4 times 4x divided by 4 just gives me x, and 12 divided by 4, or -12 divided by 4 gives me 3. If I take a look at the next one, I can see the same pattern that 12 is divisible by 6, and we're going to go with, I thought that was 6 there. 12 is divisible by 4, as is 16 is divisible by 4. So again, I know that 12x divided by 4 is going to give me 3x. 4 divided by 4 gives me 4. In this case, it's a negative because I have a negative 16. So now I have this is equal to 4 times 3x minus 4. This would be my factored form. If we take a look at this next example, I see 6x squared and negative 9x. I see that there's an x here and here. So that means that my factored form is going to include an x because both of them are divisible by x. If I take a look at the coefficients, I can see that I have 6 and 9. Both those are divisible by 3. So if I divide both expressions by 3x, I will end up getting 6 divided by 3 is 2. X squared divided by x is 2 minus 1. So I'll get 2x minus 9 divided by 3 is going to give me 3. X divided by x, those just cancel out. So I will end up getting just negative 3 there. Those are canceling out. So the factored form of this is going to be 3x times 2x minus 3 in brackets. So when we look at common factoring, essentially what we're looking at is the lowest common factor, or sorry, greatest common factor. Because this is the largest number that can divide evenly into each terms. So sometimes our greatest common factor, and that's what this stands for, is just greatest common factor, contains a variable. It could contain a variable that has an exponent on it, as long as it is divisible by both of the terms inside your expanded form, you're fine. So when you're converting from expanded form into factored form by using common factoring, you're going to start off by determining your greatest common factor, similarly to how when we are trying to get rid of fractions, we look for our greatest common denominator whenever we're adding, all that. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to write these in factored form by finding our greatest common factor. So it's essentially the same step that we did in the last one. You could see though that if I don't ask specifically for the greatest factored form, I could have made each of these divisible by something other than 4 as well. For instance, on this one I could have done 2, on this one I could have done 2. So if we take a look here, the greatest number divisible by both 5x and negative 20. Our greatest common factor, we could say, is 5. So in this case, when we write our factored form, we put our greatest common factor in front, and then what we're going to do is divide both of them. 5x divided by 5 just gives me x. Negative 20 divided by 5 is going to give me negative 4. And that would be my factored form. If I take a look at B, I have negative 8x and positive 4. My greatest common factor is 4 because no number bigger than 4 is divisible by 4 and negative 8. So when I write it out, my greatest common factor is going to go in front of my bracket, and then I'll do my opening bracket, negative 8x divided by 4. Negative 8 goes into 4 twice, so I get negative 2. And my x remains because there's no variable in this greatest common factor. Then I have plus 4. Plus 4 divided by 4 is going to give me plus 1. And my factored form is 4 times negative 2x plus 1. If I take a look at C, this is where we start to see that a variable can be involved because both terms have a variable in them. So my greatest common factor is going to include the variable of x because that's the lowest exponent on my x value. Then we have to look at a number divisible by both 6 and 14. I know that both of these can divide by 2, which would give me 3. If I divide 14 by 2, I would get 7. 7 and 3 are the lowest form that I can go. I cannot divide any further than that. So my greatest common factor is going to be 2x. So when I take that out to get my factored form, 6x squared divided by 2x is going to give me 3. Oops. Which we determined when we determined our greatest common factor. So I would get 3. X divided by x squared just gives me x. If I do this side by 2x as well, I will get both my x's cancel out, so I will not have one. 14 divided by 2 we determined was 7, so I will get plus 7. And that is my factored form. If we do one more example here, I have negative 6x cubed positive 9x squared minus 12x. I look in right away, I see my lowest variable is just x, so that is going to be part of my greatest common factor. If I then take a look, I have negative 6, 9x, and negative 12x. A number divisible by all three of them would be 3. If I take a look, negative 6 divided by 3 is going to give me 2. 9 divided by 3 is going to give me 3, and 12 divided by 3 is going to give me 4. No other number is divisible by 2, 3, and 4, so I know that I'm already at my lowest variable, so that means my greatest common factor is 3x. So now if I write that out, I want to divide all three terms by 3x. That's going to go outside of my bracket. I'm going to have to move this down a little bit. Negative 6x divided by 3 is going to give me negative 2x to the power of 1 divided by x to the cubed is x to the 3 minus 1 is 2. If I then do positive 9 divided by 3, I will get positive 3. X squared divided by x is going to give me just x. And then negative 12x divided by just 3x gives me both x's go away. Negative 12 divided by 3 is going to give me negative 4. So my factored form is 3x times negative 2x squared plus 3x minus 4. Awesome, and that is everything for this lesson.